Welcome to this last panel of this 40th Skoch Summit, and it's an incredibly important panel, which is Competitive States of India. Given the direction of the government, we are moving to a much higher degree of federalism, and you have a Prime Minister who has been elected on the success of the work that he's done in his state. It's practically the first Chief Minister who has been moved to the Prime Ministerial position. So that shows how incredibly important work at the state level is today. And I have the pleasure of having with me this evening Mr. Anthony Disa, Chief Secretary Madhya Pradesh.
Thank you, Samir, and thank you also, Ms. Chatterjee. I think it is a sign of changing times that a Chief Secretary of Madhya Pradesh has been invited to speak at a panel on competitive states of India, when just a few years ago we were right there in the middle of the Bimaru states. To respond to Samir's question of what he thinks makes or what I think makes a state competitive, I would say 6 things. One is the presence of good infrastructure, good physical infrastructure, roads, electricity, water. This is what is really needed if you want to be competitive in terms of inviting industry. Social infrastructure also, but I'll come to that in another point. I'm trying to, otherwise everything is, you cover everything and you don't get to what is the nub of the matter. I think the second point that is important, making states competitive, is openness of a state to private participation in the state's economy. The openness, everybody actually wants capital from the private sector, but the state government needs to be open about it and needs to welcome it and needs to have that attitude of considering the private sector as real partners in development, because that again makes the state competitive. A third thing I think is the extent to which a state is willing to use information technology in governance. And the more of e-governance that one has, the more that information technology is used, the more competitive that state will be. A fourth point, of course, is again something like related to infrastructure is just land. Particularly for the manufacturing industry. Yes, for the service industry, this isn't critical, but for the manufacturing industry, I would think that the availability of land is important at reasonable rates. A fifth aspect of competitiveness relates to Swadhin on the panel. I welcome my colleague, the Chief Secretary of Maharashtra, Swadhin Kshatriya, and a colleague in more ways than one. We are batchmates in the IAS, and we've been college mates in St. Xavier's, so we go back a long time. As I was saying, the fifth aspect that makes a state competitive is the labor relations in that state, the availability of skilled labor in that state, and the whole atmosphere relating to management, labor interface. And lastly, I would say the overarching requirement in a competitive state is a commitment of the government to good governance, whether that relates to controlling corruption, whether that relates to fiscal responsibility in the way the government behaves with its finances, whether that relates to political stability in the state, whether that relates also to a reformist outlook of the government linked with its openness to innovative ideas, promoting innovation and willing to reform. Because reform is actually a continuous process. I mean, you never reach your goal. You have to constantly reform and reshape, whether it is economic reform, administrative reform, political reform. A reformist mindset in government and administration is also what I think contributes to competitiveness in a state. Samir. I just have a small comment on this, and also something which, Samir sort of introduced in the beginning when he said, should states be competing with each other, or should we be presenting India as a whole? I really think that, while whatever you've said and whatever Ms. Chatterjee said it makes sense, but there is also another aspect to it. What the growth India experiences is not essentially an FDI-driven growth. Unlike China, China experienced a huge, China's growth story was FDI-driven and export-oriented. India's growth story is different, and I think we need to also recognize that. FDI is important because of the money it brings in and because of the technology it brings in, whether it is management technology or, scientific technology. That's important. But essentially in India, the larger share of investment is coming from internal sources. And a large market exists in India. And we need to nurture that market because we want to increase our own living standards. And so we want to increase people's purchasing power. It is not an export-oriented growth. And recognizing that, the competitiveness of states inter se is very important. States need to become competitive, competing with each other to attract the investment, and that actually will take all of us forward. Yes, I would like to say something, taking off from all the aspects that have been mentioned about competitiveness. A study was done by Ambit Capital, which apparently was released on the 13th of May. I myself was unaware that it had been released till Chandrajit Banerjee of the CII actually rang me up last week and then sent me a copy of the study. The study was focused on ranking states based on their performance over the last 3 years. And by performance, they took one, GDP growth, the rate of GDP growth. Then they took public finances. By public finances, meaning the fiscal responsibility of the state and the ability of the state to reduce its the percentage in its budget used for servicing their debt, and the total debt as a percentage of the GSDP. And the third aspect was the reform measures, particularly measures in labor reform and ease of doing business, which has been spoken about by all speakers. So these were the three broad parameters with many sub-parameters, and they studied 10 states of India, which actually contribute over 75% to the national GDP out of the 25 states, 10 large states. They did that study. The second aspect that they looked at is which 5 Indian states are most likely to drive GDP growth in India over the next few years. The states studied were Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, Kerala, Karnataka, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, undivided Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Madhya Pradesh. To my utter thrill, Madhya Pradesh was ranked at number 1 in performance over the 3 factors over the last 3 years. And in the 5 states most likely to drive GDP growth of the country, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, and again, I'm reading backwards, Madhya Pradesh at number 1. Now, this really gave me satisfaction. I had no idea that this study had been done. Apparently we have been, therefore, been doing some things that, that are right, not just in the last 3 years, because things don't start 3 years ago. If to show this kind of growth in the last 3 or 4 years, something must have been done right in the few years before that. Our GDP growth for the last 4 years has been in double digits, and our agricultural growth, as mentioned by Swadhin, last year was 21%, but it didn't start on a low base, because it was 21% on 22% the previous year, which was on 19% the previous year, which was on 18% the previous year, which actually means in 4 years, if you take, we've actually doubled. We've doubled our entire, and when I say agriculture, I mean agricultural sector. It is crops, it is fruit, it is our dairy sector and our poultry sector. But we've done particularly well in crops. I mean, 3 years ago, we overtook Haryana in wheat production, and this year, Madhya Pradesh produced more wheat than Punjab. In total milk production, we were actually 6th in the country, and we've moved up 4th. This year, we actually produced more milk than Andhra Pradesh or Maharashtra, and now we only have Gujarat, Rajasthan, and Uttar Pradesh that produces more milk than Madhya Pradesh. Madhya Pradesh has a higher per capita consumption of milk. Now, whether it may be consumed or, well, say, per capita production of milk than Punjab. Now, these are factors that actually, this doesn't come from nowhere. It doesn't fall from the sky. Actually, this growth has been based on solid infrastructure that we have been investing in. We have been investing in roads. We've been investing in water. We have been investing in electricity, in energy. We have been investing in warehousing. And strangely enough, not strangely, but obviously enough, these 4 aspects, which actually have helped push our agricultural growth, are also things that would assist us in pushing what we are now wanting to do, is our manufacturing and our industrial growth. Because for industry also, you require roads, you require electricity, you require water. So, and what we have begun doing now is we have begun investing in skill development. Because with all this kind of growth that we are experiencing, and with industry now being attracted to Madhya Pradesh, also because not only the infrastructure, but as I was telling you, the reformist agenda that we have, our labor reforms are deep. Our use of, when I told you those 6 points that I thought were important for competitive states, you'll probably say my answer was rigged, because I used all those points which Madhya Pradesh had been working on, but our use of IT in Madhya Pradesh is large. I mean, I remember in the previous panel when one of the speakers was saying, you make payments, and what about payments between industry and government? And actually, you will be happy to know that 92% of all payments made to government in Madhya Pradesh, whether they are taxes, whether they are, college fees, admission fees, whether they are any kind of payments, 92% comes electronically to the government. Only 8% comes by the traditional method of filling chalans and standing in the bank. Now, that is a big thing. All our admissions to higher education is completely online. Nobody goes to colleges to give the applications, I mean to government colleges. Nobody goes there and gives applications. Everything, the moment your results are out, if you want to you want to go into any professional college, online applications, you upload your forms, and the authenticity of your certificates are checked at the time you go to pay your fees in that college. We take it for granted that when you claim that you have that qualification, you have it. When you actually produce your certificate, if it is false, you will lose that chance. Rather than having to come earlier on in that manual system, the person had to come first, show the certificates, those would be checked, then the person would get into line, then the person didn't know whether you could make a choice of this institution or that institution. Everything has gone online. our entire procurement system, and procurement in Madhya Pradesh is a big thing, because when we are producing almost 20 million tons of wheat, 19.5 million tons of wheat, in our procurement operations, 8 million tons, 80 lakh tons of wheat we procure under MSP operations. We use only 25 lakhs. The rest goes into the PDS system of the country. The FCI buys it from us. And then again, 25 lakh tons of rice are bought under the MSP system of paddy. Now, all this entire system is completely computerized. We call it e-Uparjan, which means e-procurement. Right from the time the farmer comes, he applies, he gives his intended purchase, what he wants to, 3 months before the Uparjan system. He goes to a kiosk. We have a network of 6,000, 7,000 MP online kiosks. The farmer fills in his details, or through the kiosk person, on his ownership of land, how much wheat he has grown or how much rice, and how much he would like to sell to the government. He generally says, I would like to sell it all. Then we get the patwaris to actually check and see whether the farmers have grown that wheat on site. And the patwari makes changes. The patwari has to do his girdavari every year in any case. He makes changes. Then depending on how much wheat is actually grown, the computer puts in a limit, a cap, taking the average productivity of that tehsil and adding 10%. So initially in our Uparjan, we had to put people on the borders with Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan and all that. Nothing. We don't do that now. The farmer chooses his date in the 6 weeks that we do our Uparjan. He fills in his date. The procurement center, the computer program says the procurement center can say deal with 20 farmers a day. It will look for the next available date. The farmer gets an SMS, you have chosen this date, you have got this date. That comes at the beginning of the season. Then the farmer gets a reminder, again by SMS, 4 days before the procurement. This is to remind you that you have to come and sell your wheat on this particular date. The farmer comes, he gives his wheat, no payment by check, by cash, by check, by anything. Within 3 days, the money is transferred to his bank account. He gets an SMS. The money has gone to your bank account. Now you can go to your bank and you can withdraw it. In procurement, we actually push through into our two procurement seasons 20,000 crores to farmers through their accounts. And this is what is giving the Jan Dhan accounts life. Because one thing is opening the accounts. The second thing is actually having money flow through those accounts. They'll all be dead accounts. And look at our savings. For example, when we decided to pay all our scholarships, all our school scholarships to SC students, ST students, backward classes, whatever we give, we said all scholarships will only go by bank transfer. So you have to open your accounts and you have to give your account numbers. Now we had on our rolls, we thought that we had 1.9 crore students in classes 1 to 12. And actually when this happened, we now realize we actually have only 1.6 crore students. And no complaint that I have not got my scholarship. Because if indeed these 30 lakhs people had been left out, they would have complained, but no complaints. Now our saving is not just the few crores we have saved on the scholarship, but our saving is on the midday meal scheme, because so much grain and so much food was going to the various schools. Our saving is on school uniforms, because so much money was going for school uniforms, which we give free. Our saving was on cycles for girls, which we give free. Our saving is on textbooks, which we give free in government schools. Now, all that rolled in, we've realized we've saved something like 600 crore rupees only by using IT and insisting that we will transfer these benefits only to bank accounts through the banking system, whether it's the cooperative banks or whatever banks, people have a choice. So that level of e-governance in Madhya Pradesh is something which we are proud of, and we think it really has already begun to pay us rich dividends, apart from the simplicity it introduces in actually government functioning. I'll stop here, sorry.
I think, Mr. Disa, Madhya Pradesh really has to do, you're doing some incredible work in e-governance. Now you have to do some incredible work in packaging that and promoting it, in the sense, because every time I hear you, I am mesmerized.
Now for the special category awards, Competitive States of India. The first award goes to Madhya Pradesh for being the front runner amongst the most competitive states of India, Mr. Anthony Disa, Chief Secretary.
Madhya Pradesh is privileged to receive this award on being the most competitive state in India, and I'm grateful to the Skoch Foundation for recognizing that Madhya Pradesh is no longer a Bimaru state, but is now occupying its rightful place in the economy of the country. Thank you.